nights or on Sundays or whatever. So.
Yeah.
So it was.
Okay, Patty.
Thank
I love it. Whatever.
I like your pencil. Political.
Last night.
Oh yeah, it would have been better. And I picked it up as a lost key. And and Rob just made an announcement about it and figured no one will go far. So I'm glad it's reunited. Okay.
Okay, all right. Well, anyway, so we're on for the 22nd. Haven't had tons. Yeah, some. Yeah, and Dell is very happy that we moved here because now that means she can be with us. And Kenny and Beth.
I'm not starting with her.
No, you're good. No, I think we'll have it.
Are you out of high school now?
I have not yet.
Are you going to school?
Patty and I will do that big
Okay,
Or if
gotcha.
you want to. Senior year. Okay.
Cheyenne?
I just don't want it to be.
I suppose she's going to. I suppose you're better protected.
I like it. You know, I want it to be yummy.
I do know people that don't like the frosting.
Part of me even was thinking I make a pretty good design. What if I made a few things? Okay. They're going to bring salad. If I want to, because that's my birthday.
So you don't commit to overdo it.
And that's why. So that's why it's like in there. My friends and I call you my little diva. And it was long.
She'll spend 4 hours to make the cake and it disappears in 5 minutes.
That's good. You may be coming back though. Got
Rich Law.
next week and then 2
Can I
weeks
get
off.
your keys to go to the car?
Yes, right here.
So Rich next week and 2 weeks off.
2 weeks off.
Meet and greet for council candidates. The week after Rich. The week after that, I have to be back.
Yes, our panel.
TQI panel.
Yes.
Not so much LGBT, it's TQI, right?
Yeah, that's true. It's more on the other side of that range, isn't it?
Yeah. They're both. I mean,
It's happening
there's
now.
there right this minute.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people out there, but I think we have to start.
So if you want to come and go, that's fine too.
Come and go.
Yeah, grab some cake and come in.
So as soon as Bill is ready, we're going to go.
Yep. Did you find them? You find the keys?
All right, everyone, good morning. Welcome to Forum. Our speaker this morning needs no introduction. We all know Bill Kemp, who's been a very busy man this morning. Lots of hats he wears. He's soon to be our former moderator of council through a rather challenging season. And so it's wonderful to have him here at Forum for us. Real quickly, Bill has been practicing yoga and meditation for nearly 35 years. He's a certified yoga instructor and has been teaching it for over 30. He's also studied meditation at a Hindu ashram in Sri Lanka. So he's going to be speaking to us today about yoga and meditation. So let's all welcome Bill.
Oh, you can hear me? Oh, okay. Because I figured I'd hear an echo, but...
Not very well. Test 1, 2, 3.
Testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3. No? All right.
Okay, apologies.
Hello. Hello, hello. Well, this is my first talk at Forum, and I've been attending Forum. Forum was really the thing that I really loved about this church when I first got started. We started coming here really because we had children, we had young children, and I wanted to make sure that they had a good Christian foundation. This is a Christian country. I have been doing yoga and meditation for many, many years, but that's kind of my thing. Just like I'm a vegetarian, but I don't have my children force vegetarianism on them. They can eat whatever they want, right? And so when I came here, though, Forum was one of these things that was just an amazing thing, and now here I am sitting in front of you. My talk is going to be a little bit different than some of the Forum talks. Is a little bit of sort of information, but also just a discussion about my spiritual journey. A non-traditional pew sitter, I guess, in that most here that are sitting are Christian. And of course I'm Christian. I began as a Catholic when I was a child. And I've always been one, even from very, very young age, as somebody who is a seeker, somebody who's trying to find God, even from a young age. My mother was not religious at all, and as soon as she could avoid the church, she could. She went to church every Sunday with my grandmother, who is a devout Catholic. And so, my religious upbringing came from Catholicism. But I saw that the Catholic priests and the nuns seemed to be struggling just as much as I was with the burdens of life, just as much as the parishioners were. And in fact, they seemed even more troubled in that, they seemed to have the world on their shoulders. And what I didn't see is sort of the light of, the divine, or just an understanding or some sort of connection with them. And so I didn't see that connection to God that I was looking for. I was looking for somebody to teach me how to get that connection. And so I decided to learn meditation on my own. After college, I just decided, hey, I'm going to learn how to meditate. So I bought a book on meditation. And when I did, I started to see these yogis sitting in full lotus position. If you can go to the next slide. So they were sitting like that in the meditation books. Some of them were like in a cave or in some sort of a, just a very sparse situation. And they had these very simple meditation techniques that they were showing in the meditation book, which I decided to do. So, I saw these pictures of these yogis, and I said, wow, I really want to sit like one of these yogis. So little did I know, it's harder than it looks. So I began reading books on the subject, and came upon some different types of yogis here. Now, that picture there, the reason why I started yoga was because yoga, after looking around and figuring out where do I learn how to sit like this, it's actually in yoga classes that you learn Padmasana or lotus pose. So if you go down to the next slide there, those two people right there, Paramahamsa Yogananda and Ramana Maharshi, were the spiritual inspiration that after I just started doing my meditation work with this book, I actually started to attend a meditation class. I was in Los Angeles at the time, a new engineer, and I started to attend a meditation class with this older Dutch guy. His name was Yogi Raj, and he was telling me about Paramahamsa Yogananda and then Ramana Maharshi as just enlightened souls who had really found a connection with the divine. And both of those people, Paramahamsa Yogananda was probably the most inspirational for me. There's a Self-Realization Fellowship, which is a large organization that follows his teachings, and his books were just unbelievably revealing to me. They were something that's like, I finally have found somebody who has actually gotten somewhere, who really has a connection beyond just the day-to-day life that we all pass through, and has found a connection with something that's beyond what we can see, beyond what we can connect with. And that was extremely attractive to me, because I wanted to learn meditation and all of that from somebody who actually made some progress. But what I found is that both Paramahamsa and Ramana Maharshi had passed away, right? They weren't living anymore. Ramana Maharshi actually was around in the 1930s, and Paramahamsa is right around there as well. He actually went to see Ramana Maharshi a few times. And so then I started to look around for a true guru. And in my mind, here I am, I'm a young guy, so idealistic, and the guru has to be in India, has to be over here, it has to be a certain way and all these things. So I was looking for a guru or a teacher, and really a guru. So this idea of guru has sometimes a negative connotation in this country, right? Things about, there's this idea of cults and this and that, but really guru is really a lovely word. It's just a teacher who brings light, removes darkness. Okay, that's what a guru does. And I was looking for somebody to do that for me. And so when I was doing this meditation, I was studying with this Yogi Raj. We would do some meditation techniques, and then I moved from Los Angeles down to San Diego, and there is where I actually started my yoga practice. And it was there that I started practicing yoga. I was working really hard. I said, I came into the yoga studio and I told his teacher, I want to sit in lotus pose. He says, no problem, come on over. Our classes Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. And so I started doing yoga, and then I found out just how pathetic my body really was. I mean, 60-year-old women were just completely had no problems doing their poses, and I was just struggling and sweating and all kinds. It took me 5.5 years to sit in lotus pose. 5.5 years, because my hips were so stiff. But as I went along and continued with my yoga practice, I realized, and I started teaching, I realized I still hadn't found a guru, a spiritual guru. And so I really was looking for that. And so I decided to take a trip to go to India and study with Mr. Iyengar. And then also, I was still in connection with Yogi Raj, and Yogi Raj told me, hey, why don't you go see my guru? And I said, you have a guru? And I didn't even know he had a guru. He didn't really talk about it, because he was kind of the guy that everybody was going to see. He says, no, my guru is in Sri Lanka. And let's see, what do we have on the next page? Next page? Yes. So the guru, my spiritual guru, his name is Swami Murugesu. So he's somebody that was the guru of Yogi Raj, and he ultimately became my guru. He said, he says, I have a guru in Sri Lanka. I'll give him a call and find out if you can go see him. And I said, you can call him? He's got a phone? I mean, I know he has a carpet or a cave or something, but a phone? I mean, this was in 1989 or something like that, I mean, cell phones weren't really a thing or anything like that. So I was astonished that he could call his guru. And I had looked actually at a number of different things. One of them was I was going to study in Burma. There was my yoga teacher's brother had studied in Burma with a Buddhist teacher called U Pandita, and he had a temple in Burma that he allowed people to study at. It was super intense. I mean, it's like 12 hours of sitting a day, and but I was kind of that kind of guy. You see me as sort of a steady and calm guy. I actually have a fair amount of intensity in the background. And so I was really interested in just really getting into it. So I wrote a letter to Mr. Iyengar, I wrote a letter to U Pandita, and I wrote a letter to Swami Murugesu, asking if I could go study with each of them, because I was going to go for any amount of time. I didn't have a timetable, so I could stay as long as I wanted. I took some time off from engineering to do that. U Pandita sent me a letter back that says, where have you studied? How long have you studied there? What have you been doing? Who's your teachers? And I hadn't done any Buddhist study yet, none at all. So I was going in there cold. So that was a no. Mr. Iyengar said, you need to give me more notice than that. You can't come. That was a no. And Swami Murugesu said, when do you want to come over? Anytime is no problem at all. Just let me know. We'll pick you up at the airport. I said, okay. So I was really, really excited. And that was the anchor to what was my spiritual sort of journey that took me through 9 countries in Southeast Asia. Next slide. So my guru's guru is up there. His name is Kanaya Yogi. So that is the guru of my guru. And so there is this passing down of the teachings. In Kanaya Yogi, I had recordings from him, and I still, from tape recordings that Swamiji gave me, of his teachings. And I was just amazed. He was a highly accomplished teacher. His level of enlightenment, I don't know. My guru that I studied with was not what I would, he wasn't like Jesus Christ level or Buddha level enlightenment or anything like that, but really still had a lot of power, a lot of energy, and I learned so much from him. And so his guru, I just wanted to show you the lineage of guru to disciple and so on. So that was my guru's guru there. He was a highly accomplished yogi. And Swami Murugesu and Kanaya Yogi, their practice is a practice of Tantra yoga, okay? And so which is really just a combination of practices. Tantra yoga, it mixes meditation, visualization, or yantras, which I will show you here in a moment, and mantras, so yantras and mantras. And so mantras are utterances of sounds, words, that create an effect in the body and in the energy of the around you, that you generate a specific energy by saying a specific sound in a specific way, in a specific order. So, next slide.
Okay, yes.
So you can see here, this is my Tantra slide. Yeah. Okay. So you can see what Tantra is. So Tantric yoga, when you hear the word Tantra, immediately you go to the sex stuff, right? And that Tantra yoga also has a sexual element to it, but really it is the idea of Tantra is the interplay of what's called Shiva and Shakti. So it's the interplay of the male and the female energy, and that creates an effect, a powerful effect. That combined with the right sounds and the right frame of mind will raise your consciousness to another level. So my guru is a tantric yogi. There's also, they also use pujas. So pujas are ceremonies that Hindus will perform. And in my case, I was studying there in Sri Lanka for about 4 months with this guru. And I was living at his ashram, staying at, I had a little room over there, and I would just literally sit at the feet of the guru each day for all day. People would come in and they would see him. And then they would ask him questions, or just be there. And there wouldn't be much talking or whatever. You would just sit at the feet of the guru. And then occasionally, when he decided he wanted to say something, he would tell me something. He would tell me about this, or he would tell me about that. But then, you'd ask, I would ask, what about this, what about that? And he may answer, or he may not answer. Sometimes it took a long time to get an answer. Sometimes I never got an answer. I had to learn how to sit on, his room was a concrete floor with a reed, like an unfolded reed mat. There was no cushion there for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours a day. It was to the point where I couldn't walk up the stairs after my knees were so pain, they had hurt so much that I couldn't walk up the stairs for it was probably about a week or so. And then finally, it just got better, and there you go. I just could sit for hours and hours and hours and hours. It's like they say that you actually form different blood vessels or something in the legs and the knees and whatever to be able to sit for that period of time, a long period of time. And I learned how to do that. And I just learned about regular practice, just what the power of doing a regular practice, chanting certain mantras, thinking a certain way, directing your mind to quiet it down, and really directing it to the divine. And so the time with him was really spent doing that and doing these full moon ceremonies, which were things that lasted most of the night. I remember the first one, because he had me sitting right next to him during these ceremonies. And what would happen is in town, the villagers would come, the Hindu villagers would come from town, and they would come for the full moon, and the temple would be filled, and we would do this thing called yagna, which is a fire ceremony. And it's where you burn wood, and then you chant certain mantras and all these things, and it's just, you get whipped up into this sort of, people aren't dancing around or anything, it's just people are sitting and you're chanting, but there's the smoke and the this, and there's incense and all kinds of things going on, and it takes hours to do. And I remember the first puja there, and it was like, I am never going to survive, because you can't move. There's people all around you everywhere, and my knees were just killing me, right? Just absolutely killing me. And I remember it just went on and on and on and on and on. It's hard to explain how much I learned from that experience there, because Swami Murugesu took me around to see a number of saints, and they were not all Indian. There was an American who looked very similar to Jesus, actually. Long hair, beard. But when I walked into the room of this man, I felt like I was in the room with a saint. I mean, there was a feeling of divine kindness and love that I'd really never felt before. He was in Sri Lanka. I met another person who sat on this tiny chair. It was like this big, and he sat in lotus pose the whole time. And it was the chair, it was the seat of truth is what it was said underneath the chair. And this person didn't speak English, he only spoke Tamil. And we sat there with him, and he gave me a blessing. And for me, and I asked Ben, and I asked Leanne, and I asked everybody, what is your spiritual journey? Like, what is your goal spiritually? Do you have one? I do. My goal is to try to awaken in this birth, try to understand the truth, to know the truth through direct experience of that which is moving through all of us and everything, whether it's animate or inanimate, that we are not separated from God, but we just are unable to sense the divine because of the noises of our senses and our mind and our ego, and to try to quiet that down so that we can just be connected with what's there. It's similar to having somebody whispering in a room where we're having a party, and you can't hear that whisper until the voices in that party quiet down, and the whisper is always there. So rather than it being a separate thing that grace is given to you or you can reach out to or whatever, it is actually there amongst us right now. And that is what I'm looking to connect with directly in this birth. However, it could take many births, tens or hundreds or whatever. So there you go. Next slide. So my other guru, my wish and my prayers to God was to give me a guru. And I was bestowed with two living gurus. One was my spiritual guru, Swami Murugesu, and my physical guru was Mr. BKS Iyengar. BKS Iyengar was an amazing person. I was fortunate enough to get direct instruction from him. I did actually get to Pune and study with him. We literally practiced side by side together. He was a dynamo, a force that is hard to explain how powerful this man was. He did all the poses. He wrote the book wrote an exhaustive book on yoga. Next slide. Those are all the books he's written. He's a prolific author and a prolific practitioner. I was told he practiced 7 hours a day, 7 days a week, yoga, and you could tell by his poses. He's done demonstrations. If you look online for Mr. BKS Iyengar, 1984 yoga demonstration. I believe he's 72 years old when he does that demonstration. If you take a look at that, you'll just see what practice does for you. So it's always been that I want to learn from and follow those who walk the talk and who do what they say, who actually live their words. And in both cases, I was fortunate enough to do that. And I try to practice that in my own life. So Mr. Iyengar was an amazing force for me to just dive into the body and get to learn about what the body does. And so the next slide. Yeah. So he taught me about the 8 limbs of yoga. And the 8 limbs of yoga is the thing I love about Hinduism and yogic Hinduism is it is a very methodical, they give you a prescription, a way to get from A to B. You know, we as, in the Christian practice, it's not quite so clear cut in a way. There is, you can get sidetracked sometimes about who said what and what's going on in here and which disciple said this and but I think if you want to get down to finding God and connecting with God, Hinduism, being over 5,000 years old, has figured out that you need to break it down. You need to start at the very beginning, at the very basic, and then you go to and then you move to the sublime. Rather than to have the sublime be out there as an unachievable sort of thing, we have a way to do that. And the 8 limbs of yoga speaks to that. So it starts very, you know, it starts at a very basic level. The yamas and the niyamas, it's just be honest, you know, have good morals and clean the body, keep the body clean. And then, so yama, niyama, and then asana. Start to work with the body and connect with the body. Learn how the body works. So pranayama, learn how to breathe. And with pranayama now, and the deal with the 8 limbs of yoga is that you need to do the lower levels first before you do the higher levels. If you don't, you don't get there. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You can't run before you walk. And that's the same here, is that you work with the body, you learn how to listen to the body, the yoga poses, you get connected with the body through doing the poses, then you breathe. And you learn, and the thing about pranayama is it's tremendously powerful technique to work on the nervous system. Yoga works on the organs and the muscles, strengthens the muscles, lengthens the muscles, strengthens the organs. And pranayama strengthens the nerves and the nervous system. And it is extremely powerful. Mr. Iyengar wrote a book on pranayama called Light on Pranayama. And that book talks about all the different techniques. And if you do them and you do them improperly, you can get hurt by pranayama. Because you're holding on to the breath, doing retentions and so on. So it can really affect the body. Pratyahara, retraction of the senses, just means that you're not sense-driven, that you're not driven by, you know, whatever desires, sensual desires, are not ruling your life. Dharana, then you can, once that quiets down, then you can concentrate. Dhyana, you can focus and meditate, dhyana. And then samadhi, where then, only then, when you're quieted down, you're not driven by what the senses are telling you, you're able to sort of take that and center it into your mind and focus, then only can you listen and hear that whisper, the whispers that I was telling you about, after the loud voices move away. Next slide. So yoga also connects with chakras, and then here again, chakras, it's like, oh, okay, so it's frou-frou, woo-woo stuff, chakras, and so on. Chakras are another progressive sequence where you start at the base, the Muladhara chakra, Muladhara Svanistana, Manipura, Anahata, Vishuddha, Ajna, Sahasrara. All of the chakras, you start from the low and you work your way up to the high. So you start with the base energy, and then you move to the divine energy, moving upwards. And it's the same thing with meditation practice. You start with simple techniques, and then you move up to more advanced techniques. And that's what I like. It's very scientific, the yogic methods that I was taught by my guru, that I was taught by Kanaya Yogi, my guru's guru, that I was taught by Mr. Iyengar in the physical world, and that gets you there. It's just like going to school, and you start in kindergarten, and then you go to middle school, and then you go to high school, and you go to college. You don't just start in college. And I think that part of it is what really attracted me to staying with yogic Hinduism. Hinduism, there's a lot of aspects to it. Go to the next slide. I want to talk quickly about the deities of Hinduism. Next slide. So, like the Christian Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, there is also a Trinity in Hinduism. So Hinduism is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, where it's the three. Brahma is the creator, Vishnu is the maintainer, and Shiva is the destroyer. And so that Trinity is also represented in Hinduism. And so, Brahma is the deity that I learned the least about. And I'll just give you a quick overview of these different deities here. Brahma he came from the navel of Vishnu and then created everything. And Brahma is the least worshipped today. The idea is because, well, we've got everything. So let's move on to something else, I guess. Vishnu is the deity that you hear the most about in Hinduism. Vishnu is everywhere. Incarnations of Vishnu. Vishnu has many, many different incarnations, of which Buddha is one of those incarnations of Vishnu. If you're not aware, Buddhism is a child of Hinduism. Buddha was a Hindu prince, and went off and decided to try to find God and awaken, and became the Buddha. And so that's why a lot of the symbology and the visualizations that you see in Buddhism are Hindu-based, because it came from Hinduism. So Vishnu has appeared as 10 avatars. There's Buddha, and there's any number of them that I could go into, but I'm not going to do that. And then Shiva is another powerful one that you may have seen that image from before as well. He's the auspicious one. He's where yoga comes from. And the cosmic dancer is what Shiva is known as. He's venerated as the god of rebirth, destruction, benevolence, and protection. And he's depicted as a person that you can see there with multiple. He doesn't have multiple arms in this one here. Okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit too, real quickly, about Hinduism and what's the deal with all the gods. The deal with all the gods is that, again, Hinduism has recognized that there are various levels of intellect. Not everybody is a genius. And so therefore we need to break something down to, the gods represent a particular aspect of the divine. Hinduism is a monotheistic religion. There's one God, but one God has many aspects. And so it allows people to be able to intellectually grasp on something and hold on to it, rather than to have the infinity of the one God. The idea is that you can focus on, you've got Saraswati, which is wealth, or you could have, I'm going to talk to another one. Go to the next slide. Ganesha here. Ganesha is one of my favorites. Ganesha is the god of Shiva, son of Shiva and Shakti. It's a funny story about Ganesha, actually. I'm sorry, Shiva and Parvati. Ganesha is the deity of protection. So that's why if you go to a Hindu's house, you will see a Ganesha at the entrance, and that protects the people living in that house from anything coming in from the outside. So the idea with Ganesha was that Ganesha was created from mud and clay by Parvati, which was his mother, to keep her company and protect her while Shiva was gone. Ganesha had an elephant head because when Shiva came home, he didn't know that Parvati had created him, and Ganesha was blocking Shiva's entry to Parvati's bathing room. He was not happy about that. So Shiva got angry, summoned 2 demons to fight or play, depends on who you read, with Ganesha, and one of the demons cut off his head. Learning from Parvati that Ganesha was their son, Shiva ordered another head to be found for Ganesha. The elephant head was the closest, and so there you go. There you go. Ganesha's quite powerful. I mean, they all are. It's been a powerful thing that I've seen in my life. The next slide here, Ganesha's symbol is the swastika. That was a picture that my Swami gave me of that swastika. I looked at it and all I could think of, next slide, was that when I saw the swastika, right? And I'm thinking, why is he giving me the swastika picture? I mean, look what the Germans have done with using the symbol. And he says, no. He says, the Germans misused the symbol, and therefore, instead of getting protection, they failed in their efforts. And as a result of the fact that they did not actually position the symbol properly and use it properly, it flipped on them and caused their destruction. So the swastika is, the reason why it was used is because it's a symbol of protection. It's a very powerful symbol of protection if it's used properly. And Hitler did not use it properly, and you saw the result. We know the result. Next slide. Okay. So the next one here is Hanuman. Hanuman is a favorite of mine, other than Gayatri, which is the deity that my guru had taught me about. But Hanuman he is a servant. He is a loyal servant. And what you see a picture there, Hanuman is a monkey. He's extremely clever and extremely resourceful, and is a yogi to the nth degree. He meditated for like 10,000 years or something like that to awaken. Super strong, and as a matter of fact, he was tasked with the task to get a certain flower from the mountain that Rama needed to awaken Sita. He didn't know which flower it was, so he brought the entire mountain back to make sure he got the right flower. It's that kind of devotion that Hanuman represents, and to me, my sort of contribution to the world is service. So he is a representation of the idealized version of service. And so that's why I like Hanuman. He is clever, he is resourceful, he's strong, and he serves others. So that's kind of where I come from that. That's my connection with him. Next slide. So Gayatri is the deity that is based around the mantras and all of the spiritual practice that I've done since I spent time with my guru. He is he was initiated into, you get initiated with a certain deity, and there's a certain ritual that happens, and what happens when you get initiated is when you utter those mantras, they have a more powerful effect than if you just pick them up and utter them. And so Gayatri is the goddess of the sun. She represents knowledge, wealth, and vitality, all mixed all together in one. She has been her influence and the effect on my life of practicing that has been profound, is all I can say. Next slide. Yantras. Yantra is a picture. It is a geometric picture that can be gazed at, looked at, meditated upon. So what I'm showing you here is the most well-known one. It's called the Sri Yantra. And it's used in Tantric Yoga. And remember I said before, Tantric Yoga uses words or sounds, so mantras, visualization, tantras, and then meditation. The Sri Yantra has 4 upward triangles which represent Shiva and the 5 downward triangles which represent Shakti. So I talked to you before about the interplay of male and female energy, of Shiva and Shakti energy. That yantra, the Sri Yantra, represents that. They all surround the central point in the center called the Bindu. And the Bindu is also the place here above the eye that is also considered the Bindu. And you would see, that's where you see the Hindus, they will have a little dot here. That is the Bindu also. The Bindu is considered the point at which creation begins and may become unity, and also described as the sacred symbol of the cosmos and in its unmanifested state. It is the infinite potential. And Bindu is the point around which the mandala is created, representing the universe. The 4 gateways to entry there are shown around the actual triangles there. And so that's what that represents. And the next slide. So I'm going to wrap it up here and just say that I am a little unusual in that I am a mixture. I consider myself a Catholic Hindu. And I've learned over these years what it means to be a Christian, what it means to be a Protestant, what it means to be a liberal Christian or whatever. This church here has opened my eyes to Christianity, which is it's different in a way than Catholicism. And I'm just so grateful for the mixture that I represent and what it's given me spiritually, what it's given me in my life and for my family. All of you are the gift of being here, the gift of experiencing Christianity and mixing that with my yogic practice and knowing that they peacefully coexist together with no problem whatsoever. So anyway, I don't know where I'm at time-wise. Am I over?
No, you're great. You're right on.
Okay, so if we have any questions.
So now we can
Open it up to some questions if we have any. Jane?
This is not complicated, but what does your daily practice look like?
Great question. My daily practice has changed. Actually, my formal meditation practice fell off the wagon here a few years ago because of just family life. And my daily practice used to be, and actually I'm restoring it again now that things are starting to quiet down in the house, is to sit in the morning. I was always instructed to sit in the morning because that's when the mind is the quietest. Literally roll out of bed and you just go to sit. Then it's easier to just settle down. And I would say 108 mantras and then sit for a period of time in silence, focusing back on the divine and just on each inhalation, on each exhalation. And with a very simple, each inhalation is so or I, and exhalation, hum, am, I am. And just coming back to that very simple place, so hum, so hum. And then my yoga practice, I do that in the afternoon, usually around lunchtime. Any other questions?
Bill, I just can't thank you enough for that description of your journey. As a context for my question, I observe that there are many conservative and fundamentalistic Christians who consider that the relation between their faith and any other faith is antagonistic. They regard all other faiths as false or fraudulent in one way or another. And they're on the watch all the time for any hints or signs of any other religion. Right. And yet, if we look around the world, for instance, throughout India and throughout Asia, we can see any number of people with rich spiritual lives that are perfect combinations of many flows of religious traditions, and that's what your life is. And your life seems to me testimony that it works very beautifully to let religious traditions flow together in communities or in individual life. Is it fair for me to ask you for one sort of concrete example where your experience as a Christian in a Christian community, First Congregational Church, is amplified or clarified or improved by your experience with your own meditation practice and your own yoga, or vice versa?
Yeah, great question. What I find every time I come to church on Sunday, you know, I don't necessarily come for spiritual guidance. I come for fellowship, and it was funny because I told the LCC when I put my name in as moderator, I said, you know, I'm Hindu, right? I'm a Catholic Hindu. I practice yoga and do all these other things. So I'm just up front. I'm telling you right now. And is that okay? But I also am very much a Christian. And the answer to that is that I get the truth exists regardless of who says it and how it's said. And I see that. And so what my main thing that I'm always looking for is the truth. And the truth in my mind is very simple. The truth is something that doesn't contradict with anything else and exists no matter how you look at it, every perspective, every angle, it's there. And if there is a contradiction, then it's not the truth. Because the truth exists in perfect harmony with everything, okay? That's physics, it's spirituality, it's science, it's all the things. Science does not conflict with spirituality at all if it's the truth. If it's true science, if it's true spirituality. And so therefore, I get these nuggets of truth from Christianity all the time to see that it's sewn together and it is part of the same cloth that is a beautiful pattern, right? And as I find things, and the important part of this journey is to be able to revise what the truth is once you realize you've got something wrong. It's not right. These things are clashing here. When that happens, you have to revise the plan or revise the idea in your head or the concept and keep moving. Because we're finding now, like, for example, astral projection is one of the things that yogis can do. There's many things that can be done that people say, nah, actually you can do this if you work on it. I've learned a lot of things that you could do if you focus on it. Astral projection is one of these things where you can literally project the quote astral self elsewhere. And people are like, oh, that's nonsense. Well, it turns out that if you read, say, the Tao of Physics, in particle physics, they're starting to see that an effect of a particle here affects another particle over there. And that there could be any length of distance away. I mean, it can be very far away. And so it's just a hint to show that it's just a way of seeing the same truth from a different spoke on the wheel. And where that spoke could be science, it could be Christianity, it could be Muslim religion, it could be just the words of a wise person who's lived a long life. So seeing all of those play together just reminds me that okay, that's the truth, and that's what I'm looking for. And it gets revealed all the time through what I hear at the pulpit and the interactions I have with so many of you.
I would like to inquire about your contemplative concentration.
Yeah.
When you control your body organs and musculature during contemplation, is there ever a time that you're concerned about your normal function of your anatomy?
No, no. I mean, if you have to get up and go somewhere, or like to the bathroom, then you do that. But normally, actually, that doesn't normally happen when I'm sitting. So no, I've never had a problem or concern about anything like that when I've done my practice or even in any ritual. So almost, I don't know what it is. I don't know if you get in a certain state or whatever, but that's kind of, never had a problem with that. So. Yes? Oh, so that is Om. That is the symbol of Om. So you hear Om. That's the symbol there for that. Sanskrit. Sanskrit. Anything else?
In your practices, have you come to any new awarenesses as to what the afterlife looks like?
No, I have not. I mean, I have heard some things, but I have not experienced anything or gotten any real insight into that. Hinduism believes in rebirth. And to me, that was one of the things, there were so many things about Hinduism that made sense. Rebirth is one of those. For example, why is it that somebody has a phobia, even from birth? My daughter is deathly afraid of dogs, even when she was a tiny kid. And she never had a bad experience with a dog, so why would you be deathly afraid of a dog? Well, maybe you had a very bad dog experience in your previous birth. Why is it that people have, it's usually fears or apprehensions about things that are illogical on the surface. Why does a group of people get killed? Like for Sandy Hook, for example, why are all those children killed? What did they do? Well, if it's one life in one birth, doesn't make sense. But if it's multiple births, well, those people may have actually done something that requires their karma to be balanced, and that had to happen for them to move forward in the large spiritual sense. And so we're given a lot of rope to which we can hang ourselves with or benefit ourselves with. And so Hinduism talks about karma, and karma it's scales. If you put more stuff on this side and this side raises up, you want to balance the scales. And karma is all about thoughts and actions. Every thought is the same as an action. And Jesus, I believe, said that same thing. And so if you think about it over the arc of many lives, how is it that somebody, Elon Musk, becomes 200 billionaire, and somebody else who's equally smart can't get anywhere, right? It's karma. Elon must have done something in the previous birth. He's making up for it now because he's taking stuff off the good list quickly here, right? But he had his chance, right? And so to me, it makes sense if you look over multiple lives why things are the way they are with people, what happens with people. It's a balancing of the karma.
This is nowhere near as lofty, but I wanted to make two observations. For a very long time here, we had a regular yoga practice that was offered by one of the Haney, very old Colorado Springs family, offered, and she actually got her PhD at UCCS in health sciences. Interesting study. And also one of the things that I appreciate about yoga, but at a much more elementary level, is the physicalness of yoga. And I wanted to make you all aware of a book that I highly recommend. It's called The History of the Chair. And it's written by a UC Berkeley professor who was born with spina bifida, and so who spent her entire life, trying to accommodate that, including lecturing sometimes at Berkeley in a reclining chair. But the history of the chair is really quite fascinating. And one of the really fascinating, the best thing about it for me is the final paragraph, where it says we should all respect or envy Muslim men, because bowing to Mecca 5 times a day is so good for the lower back. And I just wanted to mention that at a very more elementary level, just the movement of waking up your body and getting that blood flowing is incredibly beneficial. You don't have to practice yoga to the extreme extent that he has.
Exactly
just
right.
The physical value it's just amazing. My friends who are my age but are in much better shape do yoga and Pilates much more often than I do. But don't neglect the physical part because the lofty part seems so far away.
Yeah, the body's a machine, needs to be operated like any other machine, otherwise it seizes up, right? It's just that simple. Yeah, and so you have to keep oiling the machine, and that you do that through movement.
Okay, well, that brings us to about 1:15, so I want to be conscious of Bill's time and all of your time. So thank you very much, Bill, for bringing this to us. And don't forget, next week we have Rich Law speaking to us in Forum. And then we're off for a couple weeks, and then we'll be back in early February.